we're having too much. Welcome to Davos Dialogues 2023. We are at the Gender Equality Hub, the first ever, and two very illustrious hanger-outers or coffee mates today that we get to talk about this. This is our first dialogue, and I'll let each of us introduce ourselves, but we'll start with you, Anita.
Thank you, Richard. My name is Anita Bhatia, and I'm the Assistant Secretary General and Deputy Executive Director of UN Women. Great to be here.
Woo-woo! Aldijana.
I'm Aldijana Šišić, reporting for UN Women for Davos 2023.
That is awesome. My name is Richard Lui, he for she, advocate, supporter, big ups, day jobs, correspondent and journalist over at MSNBC and NBC News in the United States. So it is great to be here. And so tell us about this hub. First ever, Anita, and why, and where are we?
No, this is historic because Davos has been happening for a long time, but there's never been a gender equality hub quite like this at Davos before. It is a partnership that UN Women has with one of our private sector partners, HCL Technologies. We're really grateful to them for giving us this space. We're on Promenade 66, and hey, if anybody's watching this, come on over, join the conversation, because this is the place where we are talking about gender equality, women's rights today.
That's right. And all of our folks that are joining us, all of you out there, thanks, and we'll be wanting to hear from you, by the way, so do react to the conversations we're going along. What's it like now for you?
Well, you know, this is my second Davos. I was here in May, so first post-COVID Davos, and this Gender Equality Hub is the brainchild of us from that mission, because we concluded that there's nothing happening really on gender in a way that it should. That doesn't mean that it's not mentioned gender and gender equality, but in a way that we see the world needs to be shaken, and in terms of where we are in achieving particularly Goal 5 of Sustainable Development Goals, we are not even close enough. So we need to make some drastic moves, and we need to be more proactive and more kind of forceful in putting that in front of people's eyes. So that what you see outside in Promenade, those big letters, Gender Equality Hub, as I need to say, thanks to our partners and he for she partners as well, HCL. It was fantastic that we were able to achieve this, to get conversation, to get space in which we can have discussions, right discussions.
And so we're going to do this today. We're going to do this tomorrow.
Yes.
We're going to do this on Thursday as well. Come on back. Aldijana and myself are just going to hang out and try to share what's happening here at Davos. And so how many times have you been to Davos? What is Davos about to you?
Davos, well, a couple of things I want to say about Davos is, you know, Davos is the place where decision makers from across the world, public sector, private sector, get together. But I also think there has been a lot of discussion about how Davos needs to be different, how it needs to be more diverse, how there need to be more women in the conversation. So I think Davos is on a journey, like the rest of the world, about really representing the world that we live in. And having been to a few Davoses, I have to say we are getting better. I think even on gender equality, I do want to acknowledge my friend Shelley Zales and the work she has been doing through the Equality Lounge to put the work of gender equality on the map. But we haven't had a place before, and that's what's important about this hub, to really share data, knowledge, the latest in research on the state of gender equality in the world. So that's what this hub is providing today, tomorrow, day after, and hopefully in all future Davoses.
It is fantastic. You want to say something? Yeah.
I want to ask Anita, because you've been here many times, how do you see Davos being used, leveraged, to achieve gender equality?
Well, Davos is really a place for partnerships. That's the way I think about Davos, right? Davos is a place where you network, you meet people, and you decide to do good things together, right? And so I see this first and foremost as a partnership place. And I think it's a place where good intentions really have to translate into specific actions. We're not quite there yet. There's a lot of good talk that comes out of Davos. Does the world change because of it? That's what the real test is going to have to be. So, you know, if people make decisions here or decide to do good things jointly, are they really implementing them? So I think we need some sort of an accountability framework as well. You know, hey, we discussed this in May. We said we were going to do A, B, and C. Did we do it? I think we need to ask that question.
What did you discuss in May?
I mean, specific, anything.
Anything, yeah.
Anything. It doesn't matter what we were talking about, whether it was on climate or food security. You know, this cannot be just a forum for having ideas. It's got to be a place where ideas get translated into implementation, into action.
You see, that's exactly it as well. What I was saying earlier, when I was here in May, I didn't see so much gender equality discussion as I would like to. So by doing this as well, and by bringing partners on board, we are pushing that next mile, if you will. We are making that next 5K.
Yeah.
You know, to get to that point where we are talking more about data, and then being more informed and better informed what decisions are we making.
Yeah.
Also, who is not at the table in Davos? If we look at around, are the women around the table in every discussion? Are the right women around the table? Is intersectionality around present in Davos? So that we can take informed decisions.
Absolutely, yeah. And the thing is, we're right here, by the way, on what's called Promenade, and on the side of the World Economic Forum. And for those of you who haven't come here before, what happens on the side of the World Economic Forum in terms of conversations is just as important, and sometimes more important, is actually what is happening at the World Economic Forum. So they really do work well together, and the fact that we're sitting here at the Gender Equality Hub is about being part of that conversation and really planting your flag here, right?
Oh, I love that. We planted our flag here.
Yes, and it's big, and why it's so important to do that is because SDG 5 really is the docking SDG for all other SDGs. If we don't achieve gender equality, we don't have a hope in hell of achieving the other SDGs. And that's why this conversation on SDG 5 and gender equality is so super important.
Give us some perspective of the times you come to the conference, both of you. If you were to you don't have to give a grade, but if you were to, like the first time you were here, it was here, and now it's gone like this, like this, like this. Did it shoot up, or is it like incremental? Give us some context to what it was when you first came versus where we're at today, based on the mood of what today this conference is.
I mean, there have been a number of things already in the first day that have really focused on gender equality. I mean, last night we were at a really interesting and important dinner called 5 Comes First, where we talked about why Goal 5 is so critical to all other SDGs. And it was an amazing conversation with people both from business but also from the public sector. That was a very important conversation. There's something here called 100 Women at Davos. That dinner was last night. Another place where there were really committed change makers. I was at a lunch earlier today which was about climate and fintech and the importance of a gender equality lens in climate fintech investment. So, you know, it is becoming a more important topic. Are we there yet? I don't think so. And that's because the world is on the verge of so many crises, and these intersecting crises of the, you know, the lingering impacts of COVID, the climate crisis, as well as the food security crisis, and the conflicts, Ukraine, what's happening in Afghanistan, what's happening in Iran. All of these issues take up so much bandwidth that policymakers don't really have that much time to spend on gender equality. So my fear actually is that it is getting short shrift, and that we actually need to make superhuman efforts to make sure that it remains front and center for all stakeholders, public and private.
So you're saying it compared to your first Davos, this one is actually more challenged and challenged in a different way.
That's right.
You know, for me, what I felt my first Davos last year in May, and what I feel now, the same thing is the energy of women who are here. You know, the energy of amazing activists who come here. There's no a lot of civil society present here, and that's because of all of the expenses, and it's not easy to get here, etc. Which I think first thing that needs to change.
Yeah.
Davos needs to make more space available for civil society, to hear real voices from civil society, create that speaking space for civil society. That's one thing. But I feel a lot of energy from amazing women, be that from government, from private sector, those from civil society, from our sister union agencies. What I'm not hearing yet is the organized, consistent voice of men advocates for gender equality. And that's what I would like to see next year, next Davos, bringing really more of the men. I mean, we have events today that they're bringing our He for She champions, and there are men absolutely there. And as you know, as a CEO of the company of HLC, is HCL, I keep saying HLC, HCL is a He for She champion, clear agenda of what they want to do. We have many others, but you know, that is still not that mass movement here in Davos, particularly. That I would love to see, you know, organizing that kind of, feeling that energy behind gender equality.
We need a movement. That's what you're saying.
Yes, basically.
We need a movement, and that movement cannot just be a movement of women by women. It's got to be a movement of men who are engaged in gender equality.
And women working together.
Yes.
Together, exactly.
Together. That is important. So by the way, you may have heard a little audience. We don't have an audience. It's because we're literally right on the promenade, right on the street here, and folks are like, hey, they're waving to us through the window. They're so glad that the Gender Equality Hub is here, right? That's what they're just doing right now.
Yes,
Taking pictures and, you know, so for me, I think my first Davos was maybe 6 years ago, and my reflection, so I was just on a panel moderating at a lunch, and it was about sustainable business in Asia, and where that will be after the G7 happens in Japan. And this is relevant to our discussion of the Gender Equality Hub, because when I sat there and I looked into the crowd, it was a much different mix than I'm typically seeing when you're not on a gender equality discussion. Because typically it's a lot like when I get asked to be a commentator on Asian Americans or Asia, because this is the way I look, right?
Yeah.
So it's great when I get to talk about other things that aren't just about this one intersection of who I am.
Yeah.
So when I was at this lunch before I walked over to Promenade 66 here in Davos, Switzerland, at the Gender Equality Hub, first ever, what I did notice was that I not only saw a 50-50, but also
More diversity.
women of color that were there speaking. And we weren't, that wasn't our topic. Our topic was sustainable business in the next coming year in Asia. And so that's one data point that I'd say, you know, in my day here that I've seen. And last night when I was here at the Women's Leaders Reception as well, which I know both of you were there too, we're starting to see growth, right? Now, are we there, right, is what you're saying? No, we're not there. But I think that the culture that's being developed here is growing. And that has to do with the World Economic Forum, and Klaus and Adrian saying, yes, we need to talk about this, and we need to do something about it. But of course, they're running a conference. They're not running, this is the Super Bowl of business, by the way. This is the way you call Davos, right? It's a Super Bowl, if anybody who watches US football. This is kind of like everybody comes here for it, right? And so it's great when we see that being mixed in. That's what I've seen. I don't know if you did.
No, I'd like to hear that story because it gives us hope that diversity will be real, intersectionality will be real, and it will show up in who's here. Because for a long time, let's face it, this has been a place of, for those who are privileged. And, you know, for those who are privileged, that privilege comes with a responsibility. And that responsibility is actually inclusion. And making sure that everybody who's going to be affected by what's discussed here is also represented here.
And we could talk
That's
about
the key word, inclusion.
Inclusion,
That's, but I think I'm still missing that here in Davos.
And look, I think we often do think, incorrectly, that we talk about SDG 5 and gender inequality, that if business leans into it, they're giving up something, right? That's a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
When we all know it's 1 + 1 = 3. And that is so important, and a great professor of mine in business school, C.K. Prahalad, Indian American, he was one of the great strategists, and he said, guess what? And I remember the class, 350 people in the class.
Yes, money to be made.
He said,
bottom of the pyramid.
yes! And I just,
Bottom of the pyramid.
yes, exactly.
You're the
that's
same
right.
professor too?
Yes, he was great, he was fantastic. So you would sit in the back of this class in business school, right? And everybody was enraptured by his concept that there is value at the bottom of the pyramid. He taught P&G, you can sell detergent, but you can't sell it to those on the lower rung of the economy that are struggling, right? Big boxes.
You need to sell it
In little packets.
Yes.
And so he told P&G, you can do that. And P&G made money based on value at the bottom of the pyramid. So I think we need to remember CK, who's since passed, but remains my inspiration in business, that we can rethink and be creative about things like this. And gender equality is something that shouldn't be seen as a cost center, but should be seen as a revenue opportunity if we really think about the business construct. And that's the opportunity, I think, by having these kinds of conversations at the Gender Equality Hub.
I will just change one word in that.
Please.
We must,
We must.
not can, just must.
Must. I got my marching orders. Must remove can
Yes,
from it.
we must.
Well, we must.
There's no choice.
We must.
There's no choice. Otherwise, 300 years. I'm not ready to wait for 300 years to achieve gender equality,
No, ma'am.
which is the latest statistics. So, I'm sorry. Everybody has to be much faster, much sharper, and must think about it.
We must think about it. You know, as a reporter, I started by reporting on human trafficking. And no matter where I went in the world to report on it, it was almost always women and girls.
Yes.
Whether it was for labor or for sex trafficking, women and girls everywhere. And this is why this is so important to me personally. It's just in my work, I couldn't understand. I couldn't answer the question, why is it always happening? And then UN Women came along,
You
he
became
for
he for
she
she.
came along, and I said, now I know why. Now I know why in every single country, when I'm reporting on human trafficking, it's always women and girls.
I'm glad we're changing your
There
mind.
You are. All right, tell me about what you're hoping for in the next 2 or 3 days and what people
Oh,
might get.
it's simple. I'm hoping that gender equality concerns permeate all conversations, that there are no conversations that take place that don't mention the need to have a gender lens and the impact of whatever we're discussing, sustainable business, food security, energy transition, carbon borders, whatever we are discussing at Davos, we do so with the gender lens. That's my hope and my dream, that gender runs through every single conversation.
Okay, what are you doing later today here at Davos? Let people know.
Oh,
Where are you at?
gosh.
Yeah, I know you have a list this long, but just share with
It
me.
is sort of long, but okay.
A couple of things you're doing.
Meeting other he for she champions like DP World, talking about.
That's right after this, right? You're walking down the promenade.
Yes, I'm walking right down the promenade.
Aldijana is too.
Same.
to talk
You're
about-
hosting that, right?
Yes, we
To
are.
talk about he for she champions and the need for male allies in gender equality. We're going to be talking more about the intersection of gender and climate. We're going to talk about the intersection of gender and technology.
This is all today.
Economic justice.
Economic justice. It's a long day still.
So what time is it locally here? I mean, there's still some sunlight out
It's
there.
only
but
4 o'clock.
It's only, yeah.
I don't think we'll be done before midnight.
Okay, so she's going to be walking up and down the promenade, keep very busy. You're going to have some side meetings as well, right? Some interesting conversations too.
Yes.
You don't have to give us the names, but any topic that you're going to have in these side
Well,
conversations?
I think this topic of male allyship and
Uh-huh.
making sure that men and boys are part of the movement for gender equality is critically important. I have been a broken record about it thus far, and I will continue to be a broken record on this for the rest of Davos.
Is it a broken record?
Oh, well, maybe it's not broken, but hey, I like vinyl, so I shouldn't say broken record. But I will be talking a lot about the need for male allyship.
Yeah. You're on auto best hits is what you are.
That's right.
Best
I like
hits.
that.
Best
I like
hits.
that.
Well, hey, thanks for being here for our very first conversation here at the Gender Equality Hub. And Aldijana, we'll be doing this again tomorrow.
Again.
Yeah, we'll have more conversations.
All right.
So, and thank you
Of course.
for kicking
always
us off.
Thank you,
My
Anita.
pleasure, and look forward to hearing from you in the next few days.
All right, so join
Come
us.
and join us.
We'll be
Come and
back.
join us.
Yeah. Bye.
Well, welcome to Davos Dialogues 2023. We're here at the Gender Equality Hub for UN Women, and my name is Richard Lui. I'm just hanging out here at the Gender Equality Hub, and we're gonna, guess, have a coffee, right?
Yes.
And
Which number of?
and Aldijana's here.
Yes, hi.
For those who don't know you.
My name is Aldijana Šišić. I work for UN Women.
Yeah.
And I'm in Gender Equality Hub 2, historical moment.
It is very great. And Yasmin, great to see you here.
It's great to be here. I'm Yasmin Green. I'm the CEO of a group called Jigsaw, which is a unit within Google.
So our purpose for these conversations is just to kind of share with you how we are talking about gender equality here at Davos and the World Economic Forum. And you know, I thought we would just start by, how's the first 2 days been? Well, what have you been doing?
Well, I'm going to speak for UN Women for just a little bit, and then I would love to hear what you have to say too about your work. But I'm very proud, and you will hear a lot about it this week in Davos, that UN Women has launched first ever Gender Equality Hub in Davos under our umbrella of Generation Equality Initiative that, as you know, and as you know, is one of the biggest movements in the world now in terms of moving gender equality forward, but in a context of multi-stakeholder partnerships like private sector,
Yeah.
government, civil society. So 10 coffees today, worth every penny for having that really historical moment to have gender being pushed out more in the conversations here in Davos.
Why is the hub important to you,
Well,
to
you
UN Women?
Well, to me, at least what I've seen from these 2 days that we've been here, you know, it suddenly created a space where people can recognize the issue to start with. Suddenly the visibility of the issue amongst everything else that is being discussed, in side events at least. And then also the space where people can come. We have people from civil society coming, we had the media coming, we had our private sector partners coming. And also it's important to me personally and professionally to show that private sector is there in terms of the work on gender equality.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to be done, so let's not fool ourselves.
Right?
But you know, there's a really movement going towards that achievement. And for me, any space where I can put those two words, gender equality, I'm going to find it and use it.
And Yasmin, tell us about Jigsaw in a second. What does Jigsaw do?
So we're a team that's really trying to develop tools, technology to help make people safer online. That includes safer from repressive censorship, like in countries like Iran, where the government's cracking down on the internet as it cracks down on its people. Safer from harassment and online hate mobs, mis and disinformation, and also radicalization online. All the stuff that went a bit wrong.
So we'll dig in more into your business model, right? But tell us what you've been experiencing so far here in Davos, for those who are, joining us.
It's been an incredible day and a half. The highlight was dinner last night that UN Women co-hosted, and just an incredible group of women from different life experiences and industries, and a real just like oozing of optimism and ambition, and we were talking about what we want to get done. One of the things that was really striking from yesterday, we were talking about storytelling, which is so important, stories we tell ourselves and we tell others, how we mobilize others, and we talked about the SDGs. What are the SDGs and how do you get people jazzed about advancing the Sustainable Development Goals? And Aldijana
No, don't tell them.
reminded us
Go ahead, tell us.
There is an incredible framing that really resonates. I'm going to use it, but you're here, so.
What did she say? What did she say? What did she
She
say?
said that they are the world's to-do list.
Yes.
That's a to-do list that we should prioritize, and they're really clear in terms of objectives and metrics. And there is one, this is why it resonates with me, there's one for Goal 5, that's about gender equality. That's what we were convening to talk about yesterday. There is one about the internet and enabling access, and I think that is one of the most important actions we can take if we want to elevate women and everyone around the world, is to make sure that they have access to information, opportunity, and each other.
I just have to make clear that I stole that from the card that was already on the table, because I thought that was a really amazing way of explaining to people who are not necessarily in our world what SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, are. But the simplest way, which I saw, it had a touched little pin, and it says, this is the world's to-do list. And I really think if we can explain, then it becomes relevant to everybody, because SDGs are something that is relevant to everybody, particularly when it comes to gender equality.
It is so well said, the world's to-do list. And we've had them for how many years now, and SDGs has always been SDGs. Often maybe mispronounced occasionally. But so what would you say the energy is around SDGs to that point this year compared to years past, both of you?
I don't know. I mean, I would love to actually hear from you.
Yeah.
What is it that you think Davos could do differently in private sector around SDGs? Because that's, for me, really, like, we know the story about SDGs, but what do you think here particularly? We have governments, we have private sector CEOs, all the big decision makers are here.
Yeah.
What do you think coming from private sector?
I mean, what I appreciated about last night was that the private sector was playing a role in convening, but not necessarily in dominating the conversation. So I think that's really important. It was mostly women, incredible women yesterday, but the conversation was about, everyone is going to need to participate in realizing gender equality. So a Davos that was really on track to tick off its gender-related things on its to-do list would be one where all conversations had representation of women. It's not just, you can't advance gender equality in isolation, right? It's about having all policy matters.
That's correct.
Exactly.
How many Davoses have you been to?
It's my first one.
So how was this first one for you?
It's amazing. It comes also at a time that both professionally and personally I'm engaged in what's happening in Iran, and we were talking about that at dinner. Nazanin Boniadi, who's one of the leaders of the really amplifying the voices of people in Iran, was talking really eloquently about gender apartheid in Iran, and how the movement is really not just being led by women, but is also centered around women as the symbolism of bringing about equality for everyone is about ending gender apartheid in Iran. So I find that very inspiring.
It is inspiring. As a news person, having covered this story, it is re-inspiring, I think, not only to those who are Iranian, of Iranian descent, or from the Middle East, but all around the world, those who lead UN Women, to see that strength despite the difficulty, and I'm understating the horror of what's happening there. That must be empowering in a way, to take that negative and make it so empowering to people. Yes, and we were reminded ourselves that revolutions don't happen in a linear way, and and I wonder also, there was a little bit of like, are we where we want to be on achieving Goal 5, gender equality? Are we where we should be at this point, in the timeline? But I do think change happens in spikes, and things go slowly, and then all of a sudden you have change that stunned you. So I'm optimistic both about Iran and about Goal 5. And so Jigsaw is about solving this problem and closing this gap and realizing the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, Jigsaw is more about providing tools. I was saying to Anita just now that women are, they're at the tip of the spear of a lot of online harms. So if you study like harassment and persecution, surveillance, if you study the experience of women, journalists, politicians, activists, you get a good idea of what the worst of the worst looks like. And if you can solve for that, then you'll be taking care of everybody. So they've been, women, in the crosshairs and in the line of fire of perpetrators of harm have been a real inspiration for us at Jigsaw.
It's really amazing.
No, I would ask you a question, actually.
Oh, okay.
How do you think Davos could look differently? You've been he for she supporter of our work on gender equality for a long time, and also you have been involved very much in our work on how we involve particularly men and boys in that. Yep. So when you come here as a Davos person, or to work in Davos, what do you see as a man? Yeah. What is missing in Davos in terms of gender equality, of course?
Well, having UN Women
have a hub here, the Gender Equality Hub, listening to great voices like yours, Yasmin, and seeing you, Aldijana, and Anita Bhatia, who's the Deputy Executive Director here at UN Women, is really great. And if we went back 5 years, or 6 years, or 7 years when I first came to Davos, compared to today, we're closing that gap, right? We're hearing more voices. The event last night where you gathered powerful women talking about how we can make a difference. And then later today, as you bring he for she together, this is all in terms of content, conversation, far better than it was 5-6 years ago. So that's amazing. I want to let you finish our conversation off and tell us what you hope to be doing in the next 3 days here at Davos.
You know, like we had this very women-centered, jubilant, kind of safe space discussion last night about what's on our to-do list to advance Goal 5, and then we all kind of made a commitment to take that to our other conversations. So none of my other conversations are women-centered. So trying to, advance our collective goals in those conversations.
And to bring all of you into those conversations.
Yeah.
Hey, Yasmin Green.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for
Jigsaw,
being part of the
yes.
Davos
Thank you.
Dialogues.
Thank you,
Coffee,
Yasmin.
hanging out here.
It's an incredible service. I'm looking forward to continuing the relationship with you in a moment.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank
And thanks
you.
all of you
Thank you,
for
Yasmin.
sitting in on us, trying to give a little bit of understanding of the conversations that are happening here. And Aldijana, is it great to have Yasmin here?
Yes, fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic. We
Well, I'll
might,
just settle in then.
we might
Yeah.
invite you again.
She's not going anywhere. She'll be here all. So if you're here in Davos, come on down. She's here. You can meet Yasmin in person and find out what they're doing.
That's a good thing, actually, to invite people to come and see us in our Gender Equality Hub.
Yep.
That would be nice.
Yep. See you later.
See you later.
Ciao.
Bye.